Hello everyone, I am Manas Srivastava. Welcome to UPSC Live with Manas and I'm coming straight from the Indian Express studio. और आज जो हम करने वाले हैं वो आपके questions, जो आपके email पे questions आए हैं उस पे based है. You know, from many days I was getting this question that there are certain trivial news and quote unquote trivial news in the newspaper or in the media. And whether they are important for UPSC exams or not, that is something which you guys wanted to ask me. और हाँ, ये बहुत जायज़ question है because at times you're not able to understand whether that particular news which is in a lot of news, it's hitting the headlines, is it important for the exam. जैसे कि कई बार ऐसा होता है न्यूज़पेपर के कुछ ऐसे पन्ने होते हैं जो आपको लगता है कि these are not very important for your UPSC exams or any competitive exam, तो इनको छोड़ देते हैं. That's true also because there's so much burden to read that you think that चलो हटा ही देते हैं, कुछ पन्ने छोड़ देते हैं. इसमें कई बार होता है स्पोर्ट्स पेज आप नहीं पढ़ते हैं, है ना. But UPSC has been asking sometimes direct question from the sports also कि कौन सा who has been the champion of which trophy and about tennis, about cricket. ऐसे questions भी आते रहे हैं. But I'm not talking about those questions. These are miscellaneous questions. I'm talking about those questions which you think or those topics which you think were very trivial. Now for example, अगर आपने मेरा शॉर्ट देखा है जो मैंने Instagram के लिए रिकॉर्ड किया या YouTube के लिए रिकॉर्ड किया, I talked about one of the things which was the turning of the cricket ball. अभी ICC चैंपियनशिप इंडिया ने जीता है 2025. इंडिया won the ICC championship. It's a very important news to know. Okay, you should be aware of it. किसको हराया है, कहाँ पे जीता है. All these things for not only for UPSC but for other competitive examination also become very useful. Okay, but इस सब के बीच एक नया इशू था. एक नया क्या, ये थोड़ा पुराना इशू था. Issue tha when Mohammad Shami said that the ban which is on the cricket ball of applying saliva. ठीक है, तो during the time of COVID and those years there was a ban on the bowlers to use saliva on the cricket ball. ठीक है, अब ये क्या हमारे UPSC एग्जाम या किसी भी एग्जाम के लिए एक important news है? Is it? Okay, now a lot of you will think that नहीं भी है, because this is after all a part of sports का बहुत ज़्यादा आता नहीं है question. It can be a controversial question. Well, there can be many dimensions to it. But let us start that how this quote unquote trivial news जो आप मुझे emails पे लिख रहे थे कि trivial news हमें पढ़ना है, कैसे पढ़ना है, are they important? Now let's start from here. Let me take you from sports to physics. जी हाँ. Now this particular news involves a lot of physics. Okay, now what is the thing? Let me just quickly tell you that there is a cricket ball और cricket ball को swing कराते हैं bowlers. Okay, so the bowlers use there's some technique to swing the ball. The reverse swing is very popular. Okay, now recently few years back, not recently, few years back, the ICC banned applying saliva on the cricket ball. Now why was saliva applied or why is saliva applied is because the bowlers want one of the surface of the ball to be smooth. अब क्या होता है कि जब आप bowling करते हैं, when you are bowling, because after some time as the ball gets older, it becomes rough. Okay, now one side of the ball which constantly hits the ground or which comes to the face the surface of the bat, it becomes rough. It becomes rougher and rougher in comparison to the other side which is smoother. Now जो smooth वाला side है उसको saliva से, sweat से, पसीने से bowlers जो है उसको साफ करते रहते हैं. ठीक है, अब यहाँ physics कहाँ है? यहाँ पे फिजिक्स है जो कि बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट प्रिंसिपल है फिजिक्स का, वो है बर्नौली प्रिंसिपल. ओके, आई डोंट नो वेदर यू हैव हर्ड अबाउट दिस प्रिंसिपल और नॉट. आई एम श्योर अगर आपने 9th 10th में पढ़ा होगा थोड़ा बहुत बर्नौली प्रिंसिपल. इफ आई गिव यू सर्टेन एग्जांपल्स यू विल गेट टू नो, बट आई विल कम टू दोस एग्जांपल्स लेटर. नाउ सी व्हाट हैपेंस इज दैट देयर इज अ बॉल, एक साइड उसका रफ है, द अदर साइड इज स्मूथ. नाउ टू मेक द स्मूथ साइड मोर स्मूथर, the saliva or the sweat is applied. Now what happens is that the physics principle which we are talking about is the Bernoulli principle. Now what happens is that the rougher side, okay, the rougher side so let me just phrase it like this, that when the bowler throws the ball, there is a kind of air, okay, which surrounds the ball. तो एक air की boundary बन जाती है around the ball. Now जो rough side of the ball होता है, the rougher side of the ball, वहाँ पे जो air है वो turbulence करके जाती है. It goes on in a turbulence form. Whereas the smoother side जो है, the smoother side of the ball, जिसको आप shine करते हैं using saliva, using sweat, वहाँ पे जो ball है वो वहाँ पे जो air है, जो air create हुई है around the ball, वो less turbulence से जाती है, in a very smoother way जाती है, faster जाती है, it cuts faster. तो क्या हो रहा है अब यहां बर्नौली प्रिंसिपल के हिसाब से, जहां ज्यादा टर्बुलेंस है, यानी टुवर्ड्स द रफर साइड देयर इज मोर टर्बुलेंस, एंड मोर टर्बुलेंस मींस लेस प्रेशर. Okay, so there is an inverse proportion. Similarly, on the smoother side, it's an opposite thing. There is less turbulence and there is more pressure. So ball will move towards where there is more pressure. तो आप देखेंगे कि जब बॉल स्विंग की जाती है तो जहाँ जो स्मूदर साइड होती है उस तरफ बॉल भागती है. ओके, सो सो उस तरफ से बॉल भागती है एंड बॉल विल एक्चुअली मूव टुवर्ड्स द सरफेस विच हैज मोर प्रेशर. मोर प्रेशर यानी जहाँ पे लेस एयर टर्बुलेंस है, और लेस एयर टर्बुलेंस कहाँ पे है, जहाँ पे स्मूथर साइड है. स्मूथर साइड कौन सी है, जहाँ पे आप अपना सलाइवा या अपना स्वेट लगाते हैं. All right. Now this is a lot of physics, isn't it? Now I am not from a science background. A lot of you will be not from a science background. What is more important here? Okay, what is more important here is the principle here. कौन सा principle यहाँ पे apply हो रहा है? That can be a UPSC question. The principle which is going to be applied here is the Bernoulli principle. Now, if I have to frame a question, what question will I be framing? I'll pick up 2-3 options and I will say that in which of the following Bernoulli principle is applied. Okay, now अगर आप स्कूल में याद करें जब Bernoulli principle पढ़ा था तो there were certain examples. First, why airplanes are curved along the top. The wings of the airplanes are curved along the top. तो जब आप फ्लाइट से जाते होंगे and आप विंडो से देखते होंगे तो उसका जो एयरप्लेन का जो there is a wing which जो कि कर्व रहता होगा. Okay, on the side. So why is that curved? All right. And second, the ships, when the ships move together, they have to steer away. Okay, they have to steer away when they come nearby. So when they pass each other, they have to steer away. So in all these examples, Bernoulli principle is applied. All right. Now I want you to go back to some science book. Understand what is Bernoulli principle. My job here is not to teach you Bernoulli principle, but just to let you know that the news which you think are trivial, okay, for example, spinning of the ball or the reverse swing of the ball, and the curves of the plane, curves of the wings of the plane, in सब में जो है कहीं ना कहीं there is Bernoulli principle being used. So you see the news is being used in a way to take you back to the static part of the syllabus. A news which you felt in the headline कि ये तो sports related news है, but it is a very important news to understand that what concept is applied. अब अगर आप मुझसे अगर पूछें तो मैं ये कहूँगा कि मुझे फिजिक्स नहीं अगर आ रही है, ये कॉन्सेप्ट नहीं आ रहा है, but at least I know that Bernoulli principle is applied and there are certain more examples that I should know. That's all. That's for the beginner. Okay, this is actually enough. Now, this is how I would like to explain how trivial news is important when it comes to your UPSC exams. Now, see, the thing is that we have already covered this part in our Knowledge Nugget of the UPSC Essentials article. So you can go to the Knowledge Nugget, you'll find an article by Roshni Yadav on ICC Champions Trophy 2025, some important takeaways, where this, this particular aspect is also discussed, where it's written from sports to physics. So that is one thing which you should remember. All right. Now, the other part of it is something very interesting, which I find, because see, UPSC is not just about factual questions. UPSC is also about ethics, it's about essay, it's about, writing subjective answers. Interestingly, there was an editorial by our own Sandeep Dwivedi ji from Indian Express, where he talked about leadership of Rohit Sharma. Now, लीडरशिप पे क्वेश्चंस आ सकते हैं, बहुत तरीके से क्वेश्चंस आ सकते हैं. दिस इज अगेन नॉट एन एडिटोरियल टू बी मिस्ड बिकॉज अ लॉट ऑफ पीपल राइट एंड आस्क मी हाउ टू राइट एन आंसर, हाउ टू राइट एन एसे. नाउ आप थोड़ा सा गौर फरमाइए इन लाइंस पे जो संदीप द्विवेदी जी ने लिखे हैं फ्रॉम आर इंडियन एक्सप्रेस इन द एडिटोरियल विच टॉक्स अबाउट लीडरशिप ऑफ रोहित शर्मा. ही सेज that he's the second most successful Indian captain ever with 2 ICC titles now. Rohit's legacy will be about a leader, about the leadership quality he's talking about, who was deeply invested in his team. So somebody who believes in team building as a team player. He wears his authority lightly. So this is a very important quality of a leader. A leader doesn't need to hold back on his authority so tightly that the seam movement of the team becomes difficult. He doesn't hold grudges. Another important point. A leader has to forgive. He doesn't need to hold grudges and is sensitive towards the less skilled. Okay, so the feeling of being sensitive is also another important part of a leadership quality. Now see, this is from the perspective of sports, but this applies to all kind of leadership, isn't it? The seemingly carefree batsman, he's a carefree batsman, but he hates that adjective when it comes to leadership. Rohit is a hyperactive captain with a constantly ticking mind. Unlike Dhoni, so there's a comparison with Dhoni, he never switches off or allows anyone to. So he's always active, and that is what the role of a leader is, isn't it? You have to remain active, very, positive about things, and you have to keep motivating the team. Unlike Kohli, he doesn't let anger influence his strategy. Again, being active doesn't mean that you're angry. You have to be composed, calm in situations when you have to take decisions. Okay, so a comparison is drawn between the two. You don't need to do it in your examination, but you have to understand the essence. कि कैसे एक captain जो है वो एक leadership quality show कर रहा है, and you may take it as an example. Now, again, the next paragraph is quite interesting, and it tells us a lot about leadership. History shows that handling a team that has former captains, players with egos, and young impressionable rookies isn't easy. तो आप कोई भी अगर आप लोग working professional आप देखते होंगे कि टीम में हर तरह के लोग होते हैं. People who may have different egos, some who are very young but at times not responsible, some who have been the leaders in the past. तो सबको साथ में लेके चलना is an important point for a for a leader. It's a very important task. Rohit is the designated fire chief in an easily inflammable dressing room. First, there is Kohli. So Kohli was a captain, the game's global poster boy, who lost his captaincy to Rohit. Okay, so one he has to deal with Kohli. Also, in the ranks is Hardik Pandya, who replaced Rohit as Mumbai Indian captains. So you see, he has to deal with people who were captain in the past and captain of the future or the present. Both transitions were seamless. Add to a mix gaggle of young captaincy aspirants and a strong-headed coach with firm like and dislikes of Gautam Gambhir. So you see, you have a team, you have a coach who have such different personalities. और उसमें आपको अपना best leadership दिखाना है. This means Rohit has in front of him a mix that can get sour or toxic if not whisked wisely. So you have to be, a good leader has to be very wise. In fact, आपकी जो best leadership skill है वो तभी दिखेगी in adverse situation with people of different characters and you have to deal with. So what I mean to say that sometimes you don't just read a newspaper only to get the objective kind of questions, factual information. You have to learn from the way the articles are written. You have to learn, you have to understand the ethos, the values which the article is trying to convey. ओके, फॉर एग्जाम्पल यहाँ मैंने आपको बताया कि कैसे लीडरशिप के बारे में इतना सुंदर आर्टिकल लिखा गया है. एक एक क्वालिटी जो है मुझे ऐसा लगता है इट कैन बी अप्लाइड टू यूनिवर्सल लीडरशिप एंड देयरफॉर इन योर पेपर ऑफ एथिक्स एंड एसे इट इज सो इंपॉर्टेंट. तो एक ही पर्टिकुलर ट्रॉफी से यानी आईसीसी चैंपियंस ट्रॉफी से दो बात की गई हैं, दो बातों के बारे में बात की गई है. वन, आई हैव टेकन यू टू अ factual concept of physics, which I again say that you don't need to dive deep into it. After all, it's an exam for journalists, okay? General exam, understanding का exam है. And the same episode, the winning of the ICC Champions Trophy, about the captain and his leadership, we get something which is related to your mains and subjective answer. Okay, so this is the trivial news which you must have thought, but it is so important. And last but not the least, again another trivial news जो आपको लगी होगी, but again this is also a news related to leadership. It is the news related to your responsibility, accountability towards the institution you are serving. I am talking about UP Assembly's Pan Masala problem, okay, which is written by Malshri Seth of the Indian Express. And the headline is UP Assembly's Pan Masala problem, what it takes to keep the house spotless. Now I can frame a very interesting case study on it. मान लीजिए कि आप किसी इंस्टीट्यूट के या किसी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के यू आर दी केयरटेकर ऑफ इट, यू आर दी कस्टोडियन ऑफ इट, और आप देखते हैं कि वहां पे जो कर्मचारी हैं वो पान मसाला थूक रहे हैं. नाउ अ केस स्टडी कैन बी फॉर्म्ड वेयर इट इज आस्क्ड टू यू कि आप क्या स्टेप उठाएंगे. Now this particular article where we talk about Speaker Satish Mahana, what he said, what he did, okay, now एक तरफ तो एक्शन है, उसके बाद जो उन्होंने बोला है it tells a lot about how people should be responsible and accountable to the places they belong to, the places they are working, the people they are working for. Now what is the incident? The incident अगर मैं बहुत briefly बताऊं तो in the entrance of on the main hall के entrance पे UP Assembly में there was some pan masala chewing which was noticed by Speaker Satish Mahana of the UP Vidhan Sabha. Now spotting it, a visibly enraged angered Mahana summoned a cleaning staff who in the full gaze of cameras rubbed away the at the red splotch. Now watching him, Mahana fumed, and I quote, he said, "Why should everyone lose respect because of the deeds of one person? यही करते रहेंगे, लोगों की थूक साफ करते रहेंगे. Will we keep doing this, cleaning the spit of others?" Now this is an important statement to make because this is not a good act of spitting in public place, especially when masala, pan masala. Now remember, this is same UP Vidhan Sabha like many other government organizations where you will find that the use of paper is discarded mostly or other such waste that needs clearing has been discarded. Wahan pe any member if spitting a pan masala, it's such a bad example. Okay, now why is it a bad example and why is it wrong? Satish Mahana said, and everyone needs to treat the assembly well. Mahana told the Indian Express, and I quote, "This Vidhan Sabha does not belong to me alone. Its sanctity is the responsibility of each of our 400 plus MLAs who represent the 25 crore people of the state. Examples are set here. And we are proud to say that most of them adhere to the rules. There are some exceptions, but we are sure all would now ensure that this temple of democracy is kept clean and sends positive energy." So you see, a leader, okay, a person who is the custodian, he says he has actually there's a punishment or there's a fine also of 1,000 rupees with a warning that a second offense would lead to public shaming. So एक जो concept होता है ना reward और shaming का, okay, so that the things are not repeated again. So there he has put a fine also and public shaming on the second chance. So there is this punishment का this thing, but at the same time look at the responsibility. This is something which the speaker wants to hint towards the responsibility of the MLAs, okay, जिनको लोगों ने चुन के भेजा है. Now this could be a trivial news or this could be a news that you could just smile away and just skip it, but the the whole motive, the feeling behind this particular news or this action, or the aim behind this particular punishment, and what all Speaker of Uttar Pradesh Vidhan Sabha says here, gives you a good example and lesson which you can not only quote in your exam, but I would say that you should follow in your life too. So when you read a newspaper, please read it not only from the perspective कि exam में objectively क्या facts important है. Read it from the perspective that what are the learnings you are taking away from a particular news item. Remember, this is a UPSC examination. You have to do something extra. You should have an edge over others, and for that you have to have a critical mind. Okay, you have to have a critical mind, not a mind which memorizes everything, but a mind which is applied at a right direction at right time. All right, so this is what I want to talk about, the trivial news, the so-called trivial news which you were writing me about. Please keep writing to me at manas.srivastava@indianexpress.com. I'm sure you're following a lot of initiatives by the Indian Express. We are going to come up with more initiatives as the prelims exams are approaching. Till then, as I always say, think smart, work hard, conquer your goal. Bye-bye.